conservative American message, hosted by the one and only Cam Lau. It is Tuesday, November 5th, 2023, and welcome to the 49th episode of our podcast. The Greek philosopher Plato once said, "The price of apathy towards public affairs is to be ruled by evil men." Don't forget to follow and subscribe to the Conservative American Message on Instagram, Facebook, Threads, X, Truth Social, Spotify, YouTube, Apple, and everywhere else. It also goes a long way when you guys share the show on social media, so please continue to help us grow our audience. Tuesday. Tomorrow is Election Day 2023. These odd-numbered election years are when there is always the lowest voter turnout. Because we don't vote for something exciting like president or congressman. Rather, this is the time that we elect our city council members, our mayors, school boards, and that such. The local elections are so often forgotten, but they're actually the most important. The officials that make the decision within your local community and schools have a much greater impact on your life than a president or Congress. Yet, year after year after year, the deep political apathy that has infected our nation keeps people away from the polls because it appears that the stakes aren't very high. But guys, the stakes are high. Who sits on your school board matters. Who runs your city's government makes a difference. These people make decisions with your tax dollars in your community that directly affect you. The president might affect a few different things for 4 to 8 years, but then a new guy always comes along and everything changes again. Presidents have very little power. Even through executive order, all of that can be erased in the snap of a finger. In local governments, elected officials often retain their positions longer than those in Congress, because nobody else wants to do the job, and nobody shows up to vote but the few people that they convince to vote for them. In my local area, there are multiple towns in my county in which there are no candidate for mayor on the ballot. Granted, these towns have populations of less than 1,000 people, but still, even 500 people is quite a few people to govern. Ultimately, it comes down to this political apathy that I keep drilling at. In other words, people not caring enough to exercise their civic duties. So at a bare minimum, to everyone who hears this podcast, I insist that you go vote tomorrow. If you aren't sure who to vote for, it's going to take some research on your part, but please don't think it doesn't matter, that it's only one vote and it can't actually make a difference, because millions of people across this country have that exact same internal dialogue, and then we end up in the state that we're in, with representatives that don't represent the populace. And we have no one to blame but ourselves. Well, yourselves, because I've never missed an election, caucus, or primary since I turned 18. And the thing that bugs me the most, don't complain about the depraved state of this country unless you're willing to actively try to fix it. A nation doesn't simply do the right thing naturally. It takes efforts of every individual. Speaking of doing the right thing, the House of Representatives managed to pass an aid package for Israel. The best part of all is that they aren't even borrowing the money or printing it. They're pulling it straight out of the IRS's budget. This is huge because both Democrats and Republicans were initially interested in adding extra stuff that would eventually kill the bill. Some Republicans, on the other hand, sought to add some funding for the border. Their argument is that we cannot begin to send aid to foreign conflicts when we have a conflict at our own border going completely ignored. And that seems legit. But nonetheless, the Israel aid bill passed as a standalone measure with no extras, other than the source of funding, which is a great cherry on top. So I think I'm going to shock a lot of you guys with this, but I'm starting to wonder if Ron DeSantis has a chance in this thing. Let me explain myself. In my view, the Republican nomination for the presidency really comes down to the Iowa caucus. National polls are basically worthless. All anyone should be worried about is Iowa. Because after Iowa determines their pick for the nomination, it sets the tone for the remainder of the race, and losing the caucus is incredibly hard to bounce back from. According to an October poll, Donald Trump is viewed favorably by 66% of Iowa Republicans, while Ron DeSantis is viewed favorably by 69%. Granted, the poll doesn't rank the candidates by first and second choices, but just asks whether it's favorable or unfavorable of the candidate. But here's where things get really hairy for Trump. You see, today actually, Kim Reynolds is scheduled to endorse Ron DeSantis at a campaign event. If that happens and she goes through with it, he should see a major boost in support among Iowans. In that same October poll we just talked about, Kim Reynolds is viewed favorably by 81% of Iowa Republicans. She's extremely popular within the state, and her support carries a lot of weight. Even personally, as much as I love Trump, a Reynolds endorsement for DeSantis, that really changes things for me. Here's what I also think. Ron DeSantis has joked multiple times on the campaign trail about Kim being his running mate. It's nearly impossible to tell whether that's just a tactic to lure Kim-loving Iowans into his corner or if it's an actual legitimate possibility. But I've got to tell you, if Kim Reynolds is on the ticket, he's got my vote for sure. She is by far the greatest governor in the country, and absolutely she should be the president someday. So if she moves up to VP with Ron, we could really see some amazing things happen. To close the episode, and just to waste a little bit more time, quite honestly, I'm going to read a quote from myself that I posted on Twitter the other day, just because I think it was really good and it's important. In a world full of YOLO, stop living like you're going to die and start living like you want to leave a legacy after you die. Delay gratification, build something, create meaning, leave a lasting impact on this world. That is how you pursue true happiness. Well, guys, that's all I have time for. Were you offended by this podcast? Good. Thanks for listening. I really appreciate you all. Have a great week and stay conservative.